Hey guys, it's Nick from This here. Today I'm bringing a long overdue Mortal Kombat video. This is going to be me ranking all of the games from my favorite to least favorite. I'm going to be excluding ports like the PSP Mortal Kombat Deception port and the Mortal Kombat Game Boy port, anything like that. Games like the Trilogy bundles and remasters because, they're practically the same game and I find it pointless and redundant to just, talk about the same game. The only ones like that I'm going to include are Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Gold because they're updated versions of the games that give them better rosters. Kind of like what Mortal Kombat XL did for Mortal Kombat X, but back then they couldn't do that, so this is what they did. So I want to start off strong with the best tier. Mortal Kombat 9 was a fantastic game and was the first Mortal Kombat game that really got me hooked on the series. I played Armageddon and Deception as a kid, but I never really considered myself a huge Mortal Kombat fan until Mortal Kombat 9 rolled around. My friend told me they added Kratos from God of War and I was instantly sold. Ever since then I've loved the franchise. Mortal Kombat 9 retells the original trilogy story and arguably does the best job at storytelling in any MK game to date. The gameplay is really fun, the fatalities look better than ever at the time, and it was the first game to introduce the badass X-ray mechanic. It's by far one of the best games in the franchise, and I think it still stands up tall to this day. Mortal Kombat X was by far the game that I've spent the most time with. It's what created my YouTube channel. Had it not been for Mortal Kombat X, this video wouldn't even exist. I spent so much time speculating and covering Mortal Kombat X, it felt surreal when I finally got my hands on it to play it. I actually saved my money up in high school without a job and bought a PlayStation 4 so I could own and play Mortal Kombat X. I fell in love with the gameplay, the run mechanic was so fun to see back, and the graphics update from 9 to X was so incredible it was hard to believe it was even Mortal Kombat anymore. I pretty much learned how to main most of the roster, and while the story was fun at parts, it definitely wasn't the best, but I did enjoy most of the new characters that MKX introduced, and overall it will always be my favorite Mortal Kombat game in the series. So those are the only two games in best tier. I don't want to fill it up too much because I feel like the best, it's kind of a big title. I want to keep it to the two games that I like the most. So anyway, we're into the great tier now. Mortal Kombat 11 is another great game, and probably one of the most fun to play gameplay-wise. But I just wasn't as hyped for Mortal Kombat 11, and really, it just feels like a more refined and a better version of Mortal Kombat X in terms of gameplay. It didn't give me the same feeling that Mortal Kombat X did after we had played MK9. It was such an improvement from MK9, whereas this just feels like a little bit of an improvement. So the jump in that sense is just not as impressive, and I feel like that may be why I put Mortal Kombat 11 lower on the list. And Kronika's a crappy villain, the new characters this time kind of suck, and they're really starting to overdo the time manipulation in this game. It was cool to see all the past versions of the characters get brought into the story, but I just don't want any more reboots or time resets. I just want Mortal Kombat to have a good written story for once. But I will say the Aftermath story DLC was friggin' epic, finally letting us play as villains like Shao Kahn. I had a lot of fun with the story DLC. The game looks great and plays great, and I really enjoy it. It's just not quite as high on my list as the other two. Mortal Kombat Armageddon is a game I see the fanbase pretty divided over. Some people love it, some people hate it. I guess you can consider me someone who loves it, as it was one of the first Mortal Kombat games I've ever played. And it was really epic having every playable character appear. Mortal Kombat did Everyone is Here long before Smash Bros. Ever did. The only problem with it having such a big roster is a lot of characters felt low effort and kind of similar to one another. The story mode was fun as they brought Conquest mode back, and I liked the whole concept of Blaze and all the fighters trying to get to the top of the pyramid to fight him. Unfortunately, the main character Taven is one of the most boring Mortal Kombat characters ever. The creative fatality system was 50-50. I thought it was unique and cool to see them trying something new. It just didn't work out that well. The inputs were laggy, and it was hard to string together cool fatalities, seeing as each part of the fatality had a different button input. Custom characters were a nice touch. I would like to see that return in a newer game. So nostalgia and roster size is what lands Armageddon so high on my list. Oh, and Motor Combat, the little kart racing minigame that they had in Armageddon, that was fun as hell. Mortal Kombat Deception is arguably the best 3D era game to exist. The story was really fun, even though Shujinko, the main character, is kind of just boring. Again, what is it with these 3D games having boring main characters? But anyway, he was better than Taven in the sense that it was cool getting to train under all these Mortal Kombat fighters and to learn all of their abilities. And they managed to do some really cool world developing by letting you explore different realms in a sort of open world experience that Conquest mode was. It was much more fun than the traditional arcade stories like in the older games. They went a different route with the roster, swapping out the memorable classic characters for some new people. A few of them ended up being pretty forgettable, like Dairu and Darius, but then some of them ended up being really cool, like Havoc and Onaga. Deception also added cool mini-games like chess combat and puzzle combat. This game also introduced harakiris, which is like a reverse fatality. The loser of the fight could do an input of their own, which would lead to the character committing suicide in some crazy way, usually related to their powers or abilities. Harakiri is probably my favorite finisher aside from the original fatality itself. Nothing's better than beating your friend to the input. Even having a roster with some lame characters, the game was really fun and memorable, and definitely a good Mortal Kombat game to play if you're looking for an older game. Now on to the good tier. So Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 are both in the good tier for me. There's not really a lot to say about them. They're the original games that started us on this long journey of combat. Fun to play for a bit, but kinda gets old fast. Obviously they didn't age well when you compare them to the new games, but that by no means makes them bad games. They were groundbreaking when they first released, and so much controversy came to light from the brutal fatalities at the time. Without them, we wouldn't have anything else, so it's definitely not fair to bash these games and put them at the bottom of the list. And I think it's almost more fun playing against casuals in the original arcade games, because skill is very hard to utilize. It feels like either player has even chance of winning, whereas the newer games rely heavily on combos and being familiar with fighting game culture in general. The arcade modes are friggin' hard though. The AI picks up on any fighting tactic that you try and absolutely mops the floor with you. I don't think I finished a single one of the original arcades because they're just too hard. Insert skill issue joke here. Same goes for Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. It's probably the most fun of the arcade style MKs. It had an amazing roster and it fixed the mistake of Mortal Kombat 3 with its horribly small roster, missing out on iconic characters like Scorpion and Raiden. Again, not a whole lot to say about this game as it's kind of the same as the other two I just mentioned, but it definitely is better than the original MK3. Mortal Kombat vs. DC is not as bad as everyone says. I'm probably going to get dumpstered on in the comments for this, but I enjoyed the game. Sure, the fatalities suck, the story was mediocre, and this game proved that anything less than an M-rated MK game just won't work, but it was fun. It's honestly the most refined 3D era game as far as gameplay goes, and it was pretty cool getting to pick the likes of Batman and Superman in Mortal Kombat, despite all else. I'll still play this game from time to time, just to have a laugh at their heroic brutalities. Overall, it's not the best, not the worst, but it is fun to play for a little bit. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is another good game. It was cool to see them branch out into something totally different from a fighting game, and finally do it properly. This game is what MK Special Forces tried to be, but failed miserably. I still see fans requesting a sequel to this game, so I know people love it. The boss fights were fun, and if I do remember correctly, this is the game where Scorpion would say, "Get the fuck over here." Which is great. Scorpion swearing just feels so weird but so right at the same time. It was also cool to see more into the characters of Liu Kang and Kung Lao and their friendship. Co-op mode was fun with friends, and it was cool to see them incorporate fatalities into a beat-em-up style game. Now we're getting into the okay tier, which is a step up from bad, so you can figure it out from there. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance is meh. It was the first real 3D era game, and it did introduce some amazing characters like Kenshi and Bo Raicho, but the roster was really small, and each character only had one fatality, and this game had the same problem as Deception of introducing a lot of lame characters, except it didn't have all the good stuff Deception has to save it. I will say the story was pretty good, with Shang Tsung and Quan Chi teaming up and the infamous zombie Liu Kang plot point, but to me, the story is pretty much the only good thing about this game. Look at this fatality. Imagine being excited to play Quan Chi again, one of the big bad villains in the game's story mode. And this is your fatality. This is what you get to use. Come on, you cannot convince me the person who drafted this fatality was sober. But please make Quan Chi's ability to turn people into a giraffe canon. That would make Deadly Alliance a little bit better. Mortal Kombat Mobile. It's a mobile game. It's not amazing, and it's not horrible. Something fun to play while you're on the bus or taking a shit. But if you're spending time with this game over a real MK game, I don't know what to say to you. Mortal Kombat 3 isn't horrible, seeing as I have Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 higher on the list, and gameplay-wise they are practically the same other than the fact in Ultimate the AI isn't as stupid. When Ultimate exists, it just doesn't make much sense to play this game with the bigger and better roster it has. Now we are getting into the games that I just think are flat out shit, pretty much nothing redeeming about any of these. This is the bad tier. Mortal Kombat Special Forces is probably the worst game to ever exist in the franchise. It was like a beat-em-up shooter where you played as Jax and fought the Black Dragon. It looked bad, played bad, smelled bad, and just is bad. The only redeeming point I can give this game is that they introduced Tremor. That's it. It's garbage, and it's a disgrace to the franchise. Sorry, but it is. It's trash. Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero Mythologies is kind of the same case, another gross spin-off game that didn't work. At least they picked a more fun character to revolve around with Sub-Zero, and it was cool learning more about the original Sub-Zero, Bi-Han, and getting to play as him again. Other than that though, this game is not worth touching. The cutscenes feel like a fever dream. It's like the lost episode of Tim and Eric Awesome Show there. What? I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking when they cooked this game up. I'm glad they stopped these kind of games though. Mortal Kombat 4 and Mortal Kombat Gold are both atrocious, and when it comes to mainline fighting games, this is about the worst the series can offer. Gold just added new characters and stages, and even that wasn't enough to make me enjoy the game. It's bad. It looks horrible, it has brutal input lag, the laughably bad arcade endings, introducing horribly boring characters like Jarek, Kai, Raiko, and doing them no justice in game. 3D graphics with 2D fighting game does work in reality when you look at the newer games like MK9, but back then with MK4, they definitely didn't know what they were doing and didn't have the technology to make it work, so it was horribly executed. There was the weapon system, which was kind of weird, and overall the gameplay is just clunky, the game looks like shit, and it's no fun at all. Quan Chi, Shinnok, and Fujin are the only good things about Mortal Kombat 4. And finally, Mortal Kombat Onslaught is the upcoming mobile game. I haven't played it yet, but I have seen some footage online, and yeah, it's a mobile game, so I would probably place it in the okay tier with the other MK mobile game. So that's my tier list. Thought I would give some form of explanation for where each game landed on the list. As you can tell, I do enjoy most of the Mortal Kombat series. There's just a couple games that are kind of stinkers. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite MK games are in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, this has been Nickfamous. See you later.
Let's see how he likes a Kamehameha!